When a woman whispers, "Don't hang up," through her tears, and she's not your lover, not your sister, not even your own mother, just your best friend's mom, you realize something's about to shift. And it won't be quiet. My phone rang at 8:07 p.m. last Thursday. A full call, not a text, not a meme, not some lazy voice note, an actual phone call. From Noah. We hadn't had a real conversation in months. Life happened. He moved to Nashville. I stayed in a sleepy stretch just outside of Toledo, Ohio, fixing old bikes, managing a quiet repair shop, and drinking more coffee than anyone should. We'd always stayed loosely in touch. Jokes, photos, the occasional remember this kind of memory. But this call, this wasn't nostalgia. Noah's voice cracked right away. "Jake, bro, I need a favor. Like now." I sat up straighter on the couch. "What's wrong? It's my mom. Something's off." She called me crying, rambling. I couldn't even understand her. She sounded broken, man. Then she hung up. "You call her back." "She won't answer. I'm 4 hours away. You're 20 minutes. Jake, please." I didn't hesitate. "I'm going." I threw on a sweatshirt, grabbed my keys, and stepped into the cold. The roads were empty, the kind of quiet that makes you overthink every turn. I hadn't seen Lena, Noah's mom, in over a year. Last time she was making carrot cake wearing one of those oversized flannel shirts and laughing with the kind of warmth that makes you forget where you parked your sadness. She was elegant, but in a way you didn't notice at first. Her voice was always soft, like silk sliding across skin. She never raised it, never had to. But that night she had screamed into a phone. Something was very wrong. When I pulled up, the porch light was on. Stillness in the windows, no shadows, no flickering TV. Just a house trying to hold in too many secrets. I walked up the gravel, slow feeling the crunch under my boots like they were counting each breath I took. And then I saw her. She was on the porch swing, barefoot, pajama pants too thin for the weather, a t-shirt that hung off her shoulder like even fabric was giving up. Her knees were pulled to her chest, eyes swollen, mascara smudged like charcoal tears. Lips parted but trembling like a line of words was trapped on her tongue, afraid to be said. "Lena." I said it soft, like I was afraid she'd break from sound alone. She looked up. For a second she didn't recognize me. Then her expression shifted. "Jake." Her voice cracked in half. "Noah called you." I nodded. "He's worried." "I am too." She didn't answer, just stood slowly like her bones had forgotten how. Her shirt dipped when she moved and I looked away, but not fast enough. The neckline exposed one pale shoulder, so delicate, so human, it felt like I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to. Something private. Something sacred. "May I come in?" I asked. She nodded once and turned the handle. Inside, the silence was thick. The house didn't smell like cake or cinnamon anymore. It smelled like stale coffee and absence. Furniture remained in place, but everything else felt misplaced, like grief had rearranged the air itself. She sank into the couch and curled around a pillow like it was armor. I waited. "He just left," she said finally, her voice flat. 12 years. He packed, laughed, and left. Said he found someone younger. Said he didn't want to waste his life anymore. I didn't interrupt. The silence between her sentences carried more weight than words ever could. "I thought we were okay," she continued. "Not perfect, but okay. Now I feel like furniture someone decided didn't fit the room anymore." I sat across from her, not knowing what to do with my hands. Then she looked up. And for the first time since I walked in, her eyes locked with mine. "Take me somewhere." I blinked. "What anywhere? I can't be here tonight." She wasn't running away forever, just escaping the memory trapped in these walls. The echo of betrayal still humming between each breath. I stood without thinking. "Let's go." She rose too, but with less urgency. Her fingers grazed the coat rack, pulled down a long knit cardigan and wrapped it around herself like a soft shield. The way it fell around her frame like poetry draped in thread. We didn't speak in the car. She sat curled in the passenger seat, the window fogging from her breath. Her hand rested on her thigh, fingers twitching as if trying to find rhythm again. Every now and then my eyes lingered too long. The way her legs were folded, how the sweater kept slipping, revealing the smooth line of her collarbone, a curve that caught headlights like water catches moonlight. 20 minutes passed in silence until we reached Ladue Overlook. A quiet place, just woods and stillness, and the faint whisper of a reservoir. I turned off the engine. "You want to step out for a bit?" She nodded, pulled the sweater tight, and opened the door. Outside, the air was crisp but not harsh. The kind of air that makes grief feel small. She leaned against the railing, hair falling forward like a curtain. I gave her space. "We came here once," she said, "years ago. After he cheated the first time. He swore he wanted to start over. We watched the sunset and I believed him. I didn't move. She needed air, not answers. I gave him everything," she said, almost to herself. "Time, forgiveness, my body, even when I didn't feel like myself." I kept thinking maybe if I stayed beautiful enough, quiet enough, thin enough, he'd stay. She turned to me, her eyes reflecting more than the water. "You ever love someone so much you forget what your own name sounds like in your head?" I wanted to say yes, but I wasn't sure I ever had. She walked closer, inches away. Her breath was warm, faintly minty. Her voice dropped. "You think I'm still worth anything?" It wasn't a plea for compliments. It was a cry to be seen, to feel like a woman again. "You're not just worth something," I said. "You're unforgettable." And then she did something I didn't expect. She reached for my hand. Not forceful, not seductive, just honest. "I don't want to go back tonight," she whispered. "You won't." We got back in the car. I found a small lakeside motel, the kind where the wallpaper was peeling but the sheets were clean. We checked in. 2 beds, no questions asked. Inside, she sat on the bed by the window and watched the night. I ordered food. Burgers, fries. She didn't eat. "You want to talk more?" I asked. "Tomorrow," she said. "Tonight I just want quiet." I nodded, took the other bed. And in the stillness that followed just before I drifted off, I heard her whisper, "Thanks for not seeing me as broken." She wasn't. She was splintered, yes, but broken, no. She was fire beneath ash, and I was already starting to burn. Morning came like a sigh. Not loud, not bright. Just there, soft light bleeding around the edge of the curtains, rain tapping against the window like a distant thought trying to get back in. I woke to find Lena already sitting on the edge of her bed. She was dressed fitted jeans that hugged the curves of her hips, and a soft gray long-sleeved shirt clinging gently to her frame. Her hair was loosely pulled back, but strands had escaped, framing her face like ivy creeping along the edge of old stone. She looked held together, but only barely. "Good morning," I murmured, voice thick with sleep. She turned, slightly gave me a crooked half smile. "You snore." "Lies," I replied, stretching. That was clearly the mini fridge plotting my demise. She shook her head, almost laughed. "Nope. Definitely you." It was the kind of conversation that meant nothing and yet meant everything. The kind people used when they didn't know how to say, "Thank you for not touching me last night when I was vulnerable. Thank you for letting me sleep in silence without needing to fill it." She moved toward the window, arms crossed, staring out at the drizzle. "Still kind of a mess," she whispered, "but maybe a little less than yesterday." I nodded. That was all she needed to say. We left the motel around 10. The clerk at the desk watched us with a look that hovered somewhere between suspicion and silent approval. Lena didn't notice, or maybe she just didn't care. "Want to get breakfast?" I asked. She shook her head. "Not yet. I'm not ready to sit still again." Then we drive. And we did. Just the road, the rain, and the space between us growing thinner by the mile. After an hour, we pulled into a gas station off a quiet road. I filled the tank. She came back with 2 coffees and a small bag of trail mix. "For the road," she said, handing one to me. She rolled the window down and let her hand ride the wind, her fingers dancing with invisible ghosts. Her hair blew wildly around her face, and for a second it was like she belonged to the sky, not to pain. She turned toward me and gave a real smile, one that lifted the corners of her eyes and tugged something loose inside my chest. "You always this good at disappearing on a whim?" she asked. "Not even close," I laughed. "I usually schedule my daydreams 3 days in advance." She leaned her head back. Well, maybe it's time for both of us to stop scheduling our lives around people who wouldn't even notice if we vanished. By noon, we were in Cuyahoga Valley. I hadn't planned it. I just saw the sign and took the exit. Maybe life knew better than I did. We found a trailhead, parked, and started walking. The woods were wet, but not muddy. The leaves glistened like someone had polished the world just for us. We didn't say much, but we didn't need to. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was mutual healing. Sacred. At one point, the trail opened up to a clearing with a view that stretched across the valley. Mist clung to the trees, rising like breath from an exhausted earth. Lena walked slowly to the edge, arms slightly spread as if catching herself mid-fall. I haven't felt like me in years, she said quietly. I stood behind her. Not close, just close enough for her to feel I was there if she needed. Then we found a bench. She sat first. I followed. She started talking not about the man who left, but the years that led up to him leaving. The slow erosion of herself. The way she shrank bit by bit, compromising parts of her until she didn't recognize the shape of her own shadow. I used to laugh louder, she said. I used to cry at movies and eat late-night cereal without guilt. I used to walk around naked after showers, without worrying if my stomach was too soft or my thighs were too full. Then one day I started hiding, and I never noticed how good I got at disappearing. Her words twisted around me like smoke, sharp soft. Impossible to hold, but impossible to ignore. She turned to me, eyes glassy, voice raw. Do you know what it feels like to wake up next to someone for over a decade and still feel alone? I didn't answer. She reached out, fingers grazing my arm. You don't make me feel invisible. That one sentence, light as breath, settled somewhere deep in my spine. I didn't touch her. I didn't lean in. I just let the moment stretch. We stayed like that until the sky started to dim again. Then we headed back to the car and drove without a word. That night we found another place, a lodge, tucked in between pine trees, old quilts, and warm lamps. The kind of place that feels like it has secrets, but offers them slowly. We ordered pizza, sat on separate beds, legs folded, firelight dancing across the walls. She pulled a deck of cards from her purse and dealt us into a game of Go Fish. We laughed like kids, laughed until we forgot the weight we carried, and then she stared at me, not with sadness, with softness. You're kind, she whispered, and patient. I forgot what that felt like. I looked at her. She wasn't just a woman who'd been left. She was a woman rediscovering her fire. You make me feel like I'm still a woman, she said, not just something someone tossed aside. I stood, walked to the window. The woods were quiet shadows stretching. She came beside me. I don't know what this is, she said, but being here, with you, it feels better than anything I've felt in a long time. Same here, I replied. She stepped closer. Her hand found mine. Her palm was warm, fingers trembling. She leaned in and we kissed. It wasn't hungry. It wasn't wild. It was necessary. That night we shared a bed. She curled into me, her head on my chest, fingers tracing gentle, trembling circles on my arm. There was no talk of love, no promises, just two people bare in their truth, breathing in sync for the first time in forever. Before she drifted off, she whispered, "Thank you for reminding me I still exist." I didn't reply. I just pulled her in tighter, anchoring her to something real. I woke before she did. The curtains were still drawn, keeping the daylight at bay, casting the room in that soft, dusky blue that makes everything feel like it belongs to memory. Her body was still her breathing even. She lay curled beneath the quilt, one bare shoulder, exposed hair messy across the pillow, her hand resting against her cheek like someone dreaming of safety. I didn't want to move. There was something sacred about the silence, like if I stirred too much it would vanish. That fragile peace she'd fought so hard to feel again might disappear with it. But the air outside was calling. I slipped out of bed, pulled on a hoodie, and stepped out onto the deck. It was still raining lightly, the kind that didn't demand an umbrella but soaked you anyway. Birds chirped somewhere deep in the trees. Mist curled between pine branches like forgotten breath. For once, I didn't feel like I had anywhere to be. No responsibilities pulling me back. Just this breath, this woman asleep behind me, this impossible moment that felt borrowed from some better life. 20 minutes later, she stepped out too. She was wrapped in a blanket holding 2 mugs of coffee, one for me, one for her. The ceramic was warm in my hand. "You disappeared," she murmured, voice still thick with sleep. "Didn't want to wake you." She stood beside me, leaning on the railing. Her blanket slipped slightly, revealing the line of her neck, the soft swell of her collarbone. I tried not to stare, but desire, quiet and uninvited, rose inside me anyway. It wasn't just about beauty, it was about presence. About the raw, unfiltered hum of her body beside mine, the knowing that she was real and here. "I forgot what this kind of silence felt like," she said. I nodded. "It's nice." Then she looked at me, really looked. "Do you regret last night?" I turned to her. "No, not even a little." She smiled, and this time it was different. It wasn't protective or forced. It was open, present. "Me neither," she whispered. We decided to stay another night, not because there was a plan, but because neither of us was ready to break whatever this was. We wandered through the woods that afternoon, talking about nothing and everything. Childhood crushes, awkward teenage dates, favorite books, that one movie we both secretly loved but were embarrassed to admit. It was light, easy, unscripted. At one point we came across a small waterfall hidden beyond a tangle of trees. The rocks were slick, the water freezing. She kicked off her shoes. "Don't you dare," I warned, laughing. She grinned like a woman who had something to prove. "Come on, coward." Then she stepped into the icy stream. Her jeans were rolled to her knees, the fabric clinging to her thighs. Water sparkled against her skin, light catching on the pale curves of her calves. I stared. God, I stared. "You're insane," I called out. She splashed water at me, "And you're slow." So I gave in. Shoes off, jeans rolled. I stepped into the water and it hit like a shock of memory, cold, wild, alive. We laughed, we screamed, we stumbled over rocks and splashed each other like kids too young to understand the world. She looked at me, water dripping from her chin shirt soaked to her chest. The fabric clung to her in all the places my eyes had no right to linger. But they did. She laid back on a flat stone to dry in the sun, arms stretched wide, head tilted back. Her shirt rose slightly, revealing the sliver of stomach where skin met waistband. She didn't bother pulling it down. "I feel 25 again," she sighed. "Or maybe just not 45. Without thinking, I said, "You don't look 45. She cracked one eye open, gave me a side glance. "Careful. That's how you make a woman fall for you," I laughed, just telling the truth. But the moment lingered. Her gaze stayed on me longer than it needed to. The water between us was gone. The air around us thickened. That evening back at the lodge, we ordered dinner from a small roadside diner. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, 2 slices of cherry pie. We ate in bed with a movie playing. I couldn't tell you what it was. All I remember is the way our arms kept brushing, how our hands would touch just long enough to ask, "Still okay?" She rested her head on my shoulder. I leaned into her warmth. At one point, she looked up at me and said, "You make me feel like I matter again." I turned toward her. "You do. You always did." She looked down her fingers, tracing a circle on the blanket. "I don't want this to be some dream I wake up from. I know it's messy, Jake. I'm not pretending it's something it's not, but I don't want to let go of it either." I cupped her cheek, thumb grazing the line of her jaw. "I'm not asking for forever. I just want to be with you, for as long as this feels real." She leaned in then and kissed me. This one was different. This wasn't about comfort or healing. It wasn't about pain. It was choice, deliberate, slow, like pouring honey over old wounds. That night when we made love, it was quiet, bare, shedding armor instead of clothes. There were no rushed hands, no fumbling. Just fingers trailing soft lines across ribs, kisses lingering at collarbones, the kind of touch that says, "I see you." Still whole, still wanted. She cried once, just a little, not from sadness, but from recognition, and when she rested her head against my chest afterward, she whispered, "I didn't realize how badly I needed this. Not the sex, just being held, being wanted. You deserve that," I told her. "Every single day." She She ran her fingers along my forearm. I forgot what it feels like to just be a woman, not a wife, not a mother, not someone waiting to be left. I didn't answer with words. I kissed the top of her head. I held her tighter. I let her fall asleep knowing she didn't have to be anything more than exactly who she was. That night there were no clocks, no future, no past. Just the warmth between our bodies, the weight of our breathing, and the knowledge that sometimes two broken people can create something whole, if only for a moment. We stayed in bed longer the next morning. The sun filtered through the wooden blinds, cutting soft lines across the quilt. Her leg was draped over mine. One hand still curled on my chest, her breathing steady, almost rhythmic. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to lose the gravity of her body against mine, the stillness of it, the rare sense that for once I was exactly where I was supposed to be. She stirred after a while, her eyes fluttering open. Messy hair, puffy eyelids, and somehow more beautiful than ever. "Morning," she whispered. "Hey," I smiled. She stretched the blanket sliding down her shoulder, revealing skin so soft and pale it looked like moonlight. My hand moved gently, instinctively, to pull it back up. She stopped me. "No," she said quietly. "Don't hide me. Not from you." That moment, those 5 words slid under my ribs and settled there. We didn't rush breakfast, didn't rush packing. Every movement felt like an act of ceremony, like we were folding more than just clothes, we were folding time. Folding memory. Folding goodbye before it arrived. Later, outside on the deck, she brought me coffee again. Same 2 mugs. But this time, she was already dressed to leave. Jeans, soft black tee. The same cardigan from the night we drove away. Her hair was tied up high, but 2 strands fell on either side of her face like she'd forgotten, or like she wanted to be a little undone. "It's weird," she said. "Feels like we've known each other forever, and also like we just met 2 days ago." I nodded. "It does." She looked at me, hesitating. "Do you regret this?" "No," I said without a beat. "Me neither." But there was something in her eyes now, distance. Not the kind that pushed me away. The kind that prepared me. A quiet, inevitable shift. We checked out just after 10. The woman at the front desk gave us a smile that said she knew everything even if she hadn't heard a word. We didn't correct her. The drive was long but silent in that comforting way. The kind where the radio doesn't feel necessary, where 2 people sit side by side and the space between them doesn't ache, it rests. We didn't speak until we pulled up in front of her house. She sat still in the passenger seat, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on the porch like it belonged to someone else. "I'm not ready to go in," she said. "We can sit here." But after a long pause, she unbuckled. "No, I need to do this. I have to." She opened the door, stepped out, and then paused, turned back. "Come with me," I nodded. Inside, the house hadn't changed, furniture in the same places, photos still on the shelf. But the air had shifted, no longer heavy with sadness, just quiet, like it had exhaled with her return. She walked slowly through the living room, trailing her fingertips across the back of the couch, paused by the framed photo of her and Noah when he was small, his toothy grin, her younger, fuller face. Then she turned to me. "I've been thinking." "About all of it?" I asked. She nodded. "I can't pretend this didn't mean something. I don't want to pretend. But we can't shape it into something it's not. Not without ruining it." I felt it before she said it. The quiet pull. The soft unraveling of what we'd made. "You made me feel alive again," she said, voice low. "Like a woman. Like a human. And I don't even know how to thank you for that." "You don't have to," I said gently. "It's not about owing," she continued. "It's about being honest. I needed someone and you came. You didn't judge. You didn't take. You just stayed." She stepped closer, reached for my hand, holding it between both of hers. "But now, I need to do the rest on my own." I looked at her, really looked. And for the first time, she wasn't breaking. She wasn't hollow or crumbling. She was standing in the center of her own skin. "You're gonna be okay," I whispered. "I know." She leaned forward and kissed my cheek, slow, firm, full of gratitude and quiet release. Every second, every breath. I'll remember it all. I didn't say anything. I just held on for a few more seconds, then stepped back. Walked to the door. One last glance at her standing there in her living room, arms crossed strong and soft all at once. I stepped outside, got in the car, and drove. The streets hadn't changed, but I had. It wasn't heartbreak, it wasn't loss. It was transformation. Like we'd both stepped into something honest, raw, and fleeting, and let it be enough. Later that night, I got a message from Noah. "Thanks for going over. She said you really helped." I stared at the screen for a long time. How do you explain something like this in a few typed words? You don't. Maybe one day I'd tell him everything, or maybe I wouldn't. A few days later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. No return address. Inside a single folded note. "You reminded me that I'm still a woman, that there's still time, that love, even when it's fleeting, is worth feeling. Thank you. Always." I folded it carefully, slid it into the back of my drawer. Not to forget, but to remember that sometimes the most real things in life only visit you for a moment, but stay with you forever. A week passed, then another. No texts, no calls, no check-ins, just silence, but not the kind that hurts. It was the silence after a storm has passed, when you know it'll never rain quite the same way again. When the ground is still wet, but things start to grow. I kept living, fixing bikes, drinking coffee, letting the rhythm of my life wrap itself around the edges of what happened, like moss reclaiming an old stone. Some nights I'd find myself reaching for my phone without meaning to. Not to message her, just to feel the memory of her name resting beneath my thumb. And every now and then, when I least expected it, she'd come back to me. Not literally, but in flashes. The way she looked out over the valley like she was breathing for the first time in years. The sound of her laughter echoing against pine trees. The way her lips brushed my collarbone when she thought I was already asleep. I didn't chase those moments. I let them arrive. Let them visit like warm ghosts that didn't want to haunt, only remind. There's something sacred about what doesn't last. That second night together, when we lay tangled under the quilt, she whispered something against my chest. It was so quiet I almost missed it. I think the world forgot how to hold women like me. I hadn't responded then. I didn't know how. But I know now. It's not that the world forgot. It's that it never really learned. It taught women how to be small, how to give without asking, how to break themselves into softer versions so men wouldn't feel too sharp beside them. But not Lena. Not anymore. That's the thing about being held in your most undone state. If someone sees you there and still stays, you remember you're still worthy. And if no one ever did before, it takes just one person to prove the world wrong. A few months later, I got a postcard. Just a picture of a lake I didn't recognize somewhere in northern Michigan. The message was short. "I swam this morning. Alone." And I laughed. Loud. It echoed. I stared at it for a long time. That image, her body breaking through cold water, hair, slicked back arms, cutting through reflection, was sharper than any memory. She didn't need me anymore. And that was the point. What we had wasn't a love story. It was a reawakening. It wasn't about forever. It was about right then. Two people. One night, 2 nights, 3. Who gave each other permission to stop pretending. Who laid down shame and picked up truth. Who touched not just bodies, but the buried parts beneath. I don't regret a second of it. Not the drive, not the silence, not the slow, uncertain way she undressed the grief from her skin. I think about that weekend sometimes, not with longing, with reverence. The way you think about a fire that warmed you when you were lost in the woods. It didn't follow you home, but it saved you just the same. And sometimes that's more than enough.